Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and welcome back to another solo episode of the Self-Publishing School podcast. So this week too. Today is officially launch day for my book published. In case you missed it last week, I did a solo episode, kind of prefacing, hey, what did I learn from rewriting my book published? I'm publishing a second edition. Like I said, today is the launch team. So I'm recording this episode, or today is the launch day. I'm recording this episode on December 14th, which is officially launch day. So last week I did an episode all about what I learned from rewriting and preparing for the relaunch of a second edition. So if you're thinking about launching a book, or really especially if you're thinking about relaunching a book, go back and check out that episode. As always, you can listen to it anywhere that you listen to podcasts, or you can watch the video version on our YouTube channel at Self-Publishing School. Same with this episode. So if you're watching on YouTube, comment below and let me know. And if you're listening on the podcast, that's awesome. So in this week's episode, I want to do really an overview of how I'm launching this book. So I want to give you a behind the scenes sneak peek at just everything that I'm doing. And then maybe, just maybe, I'll come back next week for one final solo episode to do a debrief on how the launch went. Okay. So first, I'll kind of give you an overview, and then we're going to dive straight into it. So I'm going to talk about starting with why for your book launch and how to set goals around your launch. I'm going to talk about the MVP launch and the traditional launch. I'm going to talk about the launch triangle. What is it and how it'll help you with your book launch? I'm going to go through main book promotions that I'm doing as part of launch week, and maybe even get into the difference between advertising and a book promotion, or marketing and promotions. And then I'm going to go into the 1-year launch and then what's next. So how I'm focusing over the next week and really beyond with this book launch. All right. So a lot of these key concepts are, I go in depth on them in this book. So like I said, this is a second edition, published, The Proven Path from Blank Page to 10,000 Copies Sold. So you can grab a copy this week. That would be amazing and super helpful. And if you do, and I'll walk through how this is going to work later and the thought process behind this. But if you go to publishedbook.com/giveaway this week only, publishedbook.com/giveaway, go to that link, grab a copy of the book, enter to win a trip to Bolt Farm Treehouse, which is pretty unbelievable. So think of it like a $4 to $15 raffle ticket for an epic expenses paid trip by me. So that's how you can grab the book and support during launch week, is publishedbook.com/giveaway. All right. So let's dive in with starting with why. So this is, I think, one of the most important things as an author is, as Stephen Covey would say, begin with the end in mind. All right. So what is the purpose for this book, and what is the purpose for this launch? Now, those are probably pretty similar, but it's helpful to get super, super clear on what are those two things. And so how I think about this, and I kind of outline this in it's chapter, I think number 1 or chapter number 2 of the book published. I talk about how there's an ideal outcome for you as the author, and there's an ideal outcome for your readers. All right. And most people think about the ideal outcome for their readers. So, hey, how do I want this book to help people? Which is amazing. And you should definitely do that. You should get clear on that, all those things. But you also need to think about what is the purpose of this book for you as the author? All right. And I talk about kind of the 4 whys. So is this, number 1, a passion project? Is this, number 2, a shared experience book? Number 3, do you hope to become a full-time author? Or number 4, are you using this book to grow your business? All right. And sure, it can be multiple of those things all wrapped up into one, right? I am very passionate about books changing lives and how books change the lives of authors and of readers. So this is very much a passion project for me. But even more than that, I'm being very intentional to use this book to help grow Self-Publishing School, because I believe that people working with us at Self-Publishing School is the best way that we can help them and change their life through their book, right? So this book is meant for me. The book is a 10,000-foot view of what we teach at Self-Publishing School. And for people who are motivated, who want more help, all that stuff, they'll end up booking a call with my team, signing up for Self-Publishing School, and getting our help even further. All right. So getting really clear on that is the North Star. And then so many marketing decisions will be based on that. All right. Now I'm giving away copies of books. I'm doing a lot of investing in things that probably for most people, it might seem, hey, this is unattainable, or this is unrealistic for me personally, as a first-time author. But because the goal is the business, that is the economic engine. And I talk about this, creating your economic engine for long-term book sales in this book. But that's the economic engine that will help fuel long-term book sales and long-term growth and all that stuff. So number one, it starts with determining your ideal outcome and why you're publishing this book. All right. And so that's where it starts. And then now I want to go into kind of how I'm approaching launch week as a whole. So I'll zoom out. So I've got a few goals with the book. The first goal is to move 5,000 copies by the end of the year, free or paid. So I'm shipping and giving away a ton of copies of the book. Cause again, this book it teaches methodology and brings back customers for the business. Right. And it's unbelievably helpful. And I really believe in it. So that's one goal. Second goal is 1,000 appointments. So calls booked from the book. So people booking a call with the self-publishing school team. And so actually, if you're listening to this or watching this and you're thinking, hey, I would love self-publishing schools help with my book, go to publishedbook.com/apply, book a call with the team. We're happy to chat with you and start putting together a plan and see how we can help. So that's publishedbook.com/apply. You can book a call with the team. All right. So that's a goal. And then I have a goal of getting to 2,500 reviews on the print book and Kindle book, and then 1,000 reviews on the audiobook by end of January. So that's the goal there. And then the bigger goal is to sell 1 million copies by the end of next year. So the end of 2022. And so good news on the review front, we actually just passed 1,000 reviews yesterday, which is unbelievable. So really, really cool. And we're closing in on 100 reviews for the audiobook, which is amazing as well. So that's kind of my overarching goals and my start with why. Now we'll move into a concept. Now I call this, there's two types of launches that I outline in this book. There's the MVP launch and the traditional launch. All right, I'm going to go into some detail, but I want to keep this podcast punchy and short and to the point. So I'm not going to go, all the way through it, but MVP launch is minimum viable product. So this is a really great launch for a lot of first-time authors. Okay. It's the minimum viable launch essentially. And then you have a traditional launch, which if you've seen any traditionally published book, they have probably followed a version of this launch, probably not to the full extent that I teach in the book. But that's the process that they probably followed. So for the purposes of this book, I'm following more of a traditional launch. And that is, I'm doing podcast interviews, I'm doing influencer boxes, I'm doing a lot more kind of traditional book marketing, but traditional makes it sound old school and outdated because a lot of traditionally published authors do that stuff. But this is more of a modern take on tried and true marketing methods that work, that are a little bit more advanced, that take more time to execute and that take more money and resources, right? So that's the goal, is in between the MVP launch and the traditional launch, is you can scale. It's really a spectrum. It's not a binary decision. It's a spectrum of, okay, based on your time that you have, your resources that you have, and your goals for your book, you'll fall somewhere on that spectrum, right? So I'm kind of more on the MVP meets traditional launch, and I talk about this more in the book itself. All right. Now, within the traditional launch and the MVP launch, there's something I call the launch triangle. Okay, these are the 3 essentials that you need to do, no matter the launch type that you do. I walk through this, like I said in the book, but the 3 essentials are a launch team, are getting reviews, and our promotions. All right. Now I've taught launch team stuff so many places. So if you don't know what a launch team is, go elsewhere and check out my training on that, or you can just grab a copy of the book, and I have a full chapter on launch teams. All right. I'm not going to belabor that because I'm assuming that most people listening to this or watching this have heard me talk about the concept of a launch team. Right. So I've got 150 people on the launch team. And the goal is at least 100 reviews from the launch team on both the print book and the audiobook. So that's been really helpful, even leading up to the launch, and helped us pass some review milestones there. So I'm being very intentional about that. Then there's reviews, obviously one-on-one outreach, which will be a big part of the back half of my week this week. And then there's promotions. All right. And now this is the part that I want to go into a little bit more detail. In the book, I've got promotions specific to the MVP launch and promotions specific to the traditional launch. But I wanted to kind of walk through and say, hey, what are the main promotions that I'm doing to actually promote this book? Because it's funny, I think one would think that as I've gotten more successful and built a business and all those things, that I would just be doing everything, right? But I was reflecting a few weeks ago, and I said, you know what? There's actually only 3 to 5 things that I'm doing. That's because there are the handful of things that I know, and in some cases are testing for you on behalf of you guys to see if they work. And so I'm doing an influencer campaign, which I talk about in the book. I'm doing a launch week giveaway, and I'm doing a lot of podcast promotion, or I outline this in the book. It's called a virtual book tour. All right. I've got a whole chapter on PR, publicity, and what I call author appearances, and doing a virtual book tour. It's chapter number 24 in the book. So if you have chapter 24, go into that chapter to learn more about the virtual book tour component. But for simplicity's sake, I've done about 25 podcast interviews so far leading up to the launch. My goal is to do another 10 to 20 in December. And then my goal is to continue doing 25 podcast interviews per month for the next 3 to 6 months. So that's the virtual book tour piece. Now, one thing I'm doing within this that you may have seen, if you've listened to any of the podcast episodes I've recorded, is I'm doing a 50 free book giveaway. All right. And so basically at the end of the interview itself, and I talk about this in the book, it's like when you need to have a clear call to action if you're going on podcasts to promote your book. So this is probably one of the best and most clear call to actions that I've ever had. So that is, so I'm doing so basically what I did is I created custom links for each podcast that I went on, and I'm giving away 50 free copies of the book for listeners of each podcast. So they don't even have to pay shipping, handling, free physical copy of the book. I know these are the best potential prospects for self-publishing school. So obviously it's kind of a no-brainer for me. It's a little bit of a risk because I'm paying for all the fulfillment on all that stuff. So the jury's out and we will see if that leads to customers. I have a hunch that it will. All right. And now I'm also doing, like I said, 2 other things: influencer campaign and a launch week giveaway. Now I'll back up and say that we've been doing a pre-sales campaign. So we did a pre-sales campaign for Black Friday and for leading up to the actual launch itself. Our Black Friday promo moved 2,473 books. That led to 65 qualified appointments with my team, people who grabbed a copy of the book and booked a call to chat about self-publishing school. And I think it looks like, and I'm not sure if this number is fully accurate, but to date, that's led to about $40,000 in revenue for self-publishing school. All right. And then we've done a pre-launch campaign since then, giving away some free copies. That's moved about 1,789 copies of the book. Not even about exactly that. And 80 qualified appointments with the team and about $23,000 more in revenue. So all told, the pre-sales campaign did about 4,195 copies. So really, really solid momentum leading up to the launch. I'm really, really happy about that. And so I'll explain the influencer campaign, the launch week giveaway, and then I'll circle back to kind of the final things that I'm doing to sell books. So the influencer campaign, you can see here, if you're watching the video version, I sent a box. So I don't have the full contents of the box. Obviously the book itself is in the box. You can see it says books change lives. It says for best results, read the book in there. And there's a couple other things that I sent with it. But so I sent those to about 580 people. So that was a really big task, just reaching out to so many different people, getting their addresses and shipping boxes. And huge shout out to Hunter and Katie Sue on my team, who are a big help in that. But those are starting to trickle in. And so that there's this kind of social shockwave of people posting about the book. And so I'll probably debrief that at a future time, but just I have a letter in there that says, hey, here are 3 ways that you can help with the book. Number 1, bring me on your podcast if you have one. Number 2, post to social about the book. And number 3, I can do a giveaway to your audience. So that was kind of the call to action and the intent behind this. We'll see if it's worth it. It was a lot of work. And I sent out a lot of these boxes. I'm already starting to get inbound inquiries and booking podcast interviews from it. So I mean, if it cost me $20 per box, let's call it maybe 25 at the absolute most, if you include labor cost, that's not bad to get podcast booked, which leads to a bunch more sales and appointments for self-publishing school and all that stuff. So that's the influencer campaign. And then the third piece, and this is what I'm really focusing on during launch week, and this is what I would love for you to do if you're listening or watching this during launch week, and it's a win for you as well, is I'm doing a giveaway. So a lot of people, and I talk about this in the book, do pre-sales or launch week bonuses. I think it's a great idea. I think it's really helpful. It's proven to work. But I'm testing something new, and I learned this from my new friend, Jordan Rayner. And he talked about how he said, that can just be a little bit confusing. You're talking about all these bonuses. People are like, what are they? It's confusing. Who cares? And he said, what I found works better is something people actually want. So like a trip, or so kind of like a raffle. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm going to test it, see how it works. And we're promoting it as the main call to action during launch week. And so basically the premise is this. I set up a little giveaway. It's a software called Gleam that's how I'm doing it. And you can see how it looks if you go to publishedbook.com/giveaway. So you can find that there. But basically, it's super simple. There's a video from me there. And then I say, hey, think of this as a raffle ticket. You pay $4 for the ebook or $15 or so for the print book. If you buy a copy of the book during launch week, you're entered to win an expenses paid trip to Bolt Farm Treehouse. Now, for those of you who don't know, my brother, Seth Bolt, he plays in the band Need to Breathe. Him and his wife created Bolt Farm Treehouses. It's been the #1 Airbnb in South Carolina, now #1 in Chattanooga or in Tennessee as a whole. It's been on Netflix, World's Most Amazing Vacation Rentals, all that stuff. So I'm paying for essentially the stay and the airfare for one winner, 2 people, one winner. So one person is significant other, but one winner from the competition or the raffle, if you will. And so it's a launch week giveaway. All people have to do is grab a copy of the book to enter to win. And then they can also boost their chances if they leave a review and a couple other things. But that's the basic premise. So I'm putting a lot of eggs in that basket, and we'll see how it goes. So I'll circle back and let you guys know how that works. But if you want to enter to win that giveaway, go to publishedbook.com/giveaway. All right. And you can enter to win there. Grab a copy of the book this week. That would be so helpful. I can't wait to hear what you think about it and all that good stuff. All right. Now, in addition, there's a bunch of other small things that I'm doing. I'm not going to go in a ton of detail about that. I'm also scaling Amazon ads. We're doing some tests there, and there's a bunch of other small things, but those are the 3 main promotions: influencer campaign, launch week giveaway, and podcasts, and getting as many of those podcasts to launch to go live during launch week as possible. All right. And so that transition to the next piece, and this is really kind of the message I would like to leave you with, which is I'm looking at this as a 1-year launch. And so there's a whole chapter on this in the book. It talks about the 1-year launch. And it's chapter number, I'm just looking here, I think it's chapter number 21. And it's I've launched, now what? And this is I talk about failed launch Fred and successful launch Sally. And this is where a lot of people are. So a lot of people do what I call the Lamborghini book launch. If you know anything about Lamborghinis, they're fast, they use up a lot of fuel, they're sexy, and they're gone in a flash, right? And so people spend all this time and effort on launch week, and then it's gone in a flash. They don't even touch their book again, right? So what I'm doing, and what I suggest that you do, is instead take the 1-year launch approach. So yes, I'm focusing a lot of effort on launch week, but more importantly, I'm using launch week to build what I call evergreen marketing assets that will continue to sell the book month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, right? And so that's where I'm taking this 1-year launch. And so you're going to continue to hear me talk about and market this book for a long time. I feel like I've created something that is really helpful for people. My guess is if you're publishing and launching your book, you feel the same way. So why would you only talk about it during launch week? Or why would you only market it for a couple of weeks, and then 3 months later, you're thinking, where did my sales go? Well, it's because as authors, we give up on our books way too early. And this is the commonality that I've heard from so many people on the Self-Publishing School podcast, is all the most successful authors, they come on the show, right? And what's the commonality of the top selling authors is that they continue to market their books. they take the 1-year launch, or as my friend John Ruhlin, who wrote the book Giftology, he took the 5-year launch, is what he called it. And I think that's what you need to do. And that's what I'm going to be doing with this book as well. So that's kind of what I'm transitioning into here next is, yes, having a big splash this week, but also taking the 1-year approach and the 1-year launch. So what's next? Obviously it's launch week. So I'm promoting like crazy on all platforms and social and this podcast and everywhere. And I'm promoting this giveaway, and then I'm going to be doing more podcast interviews. I've got a handful more this week that I'm doing, and I'm just going to keep doing podcast interviews every single week. I mean, at the time of recording this, next week is Christmas. I think I've got, I'm going to take some time off next week, but I've also got podcast interviews at the beginning of that week. Right. So I'm going to keep doubling down on the virtual book tour. It's something I wholeheartedly believe in. It's why I talk about it multiple times in this book. And I think it's one of the best things you can do to build evergreen marketing assets and to market your book long-term. Okay. So that's what's up next. I hope that this was helpful. These solo episodes, I wanted to give you kind of behind the scenes. I know I'm talking a million miles an hour. It's launch day after all. Time is limited. This interview will, or this interview, I guess I'm interviewing myself, but this podcast episode will be going live tomorrow. So if you're hearing this, it's the day after launch, or maybe it's been after that. And you can kind of look back and see what I did to successfully launch this book. So if you like this episode, let me know. And I maybe, just maybe, we'll come back and next week for another solo episode to recap the launch and how it went. I've already got some interviews, some really good interviews coming up for you, but who knows, TBD. We'll see. Let me know if that would be helpful and if that's something that you'd be interested in. All right. So with that said, if you want to support the book this week during launch week, that would mean the world to me. And you might win a trip to Bolt Farm Treehouses. So go to publishedbook.com/giveaway. Grab the book, fill out the form, or obviously you can just grab the book on Amazon. Now, if you want to leave a review this week, if you check out the book, that would be so amazing and so helpful. Audiobook reviews. So I didn't mention this, but I am really focusing on the audiobook. I'm very bullish on that long-term. So I'm focusing a lot of time, energy, and effort on the audiobook itself. So download the audiobook version. If you have an Audible account, I think you'll love it. I narrated it. So check it out. You can go to publishedbook.com/audible to grab a copy of that book, and you can get a free copy if you try an Audible subscription, if you've never done that before. So you can grab a copy there and then leave a review on the audiobook if you have that version, or if you had the first version of the published audiobook. Guess what? Good news. It just updated. You just have to re-download it and you can listen and leave a review there. So I hope that you enjoy the book. I hope that this was helpful. Grab a copy of the book this week. Thank you so much for your support.